What's up, everybody? I'm James. Welcome to BootWizard Boot Reviews. Now, of course, this is not a regularly scheduled BootWizard video day, but we have to talk about what has just happened. Now, this isn't even boot related, but it is such a seismic event for the football community as a whole that we just have to discuss exactly what's going on here. I'll give you my thoughts. Hopefully, if you're a little bit unsure about what's happening, I'll also give you all the information so that you can kind of make up your own mind as well. But let's just get straight into it. Do like the video and get subscribed to the channel if you can. So the big news is that 12 clubs have announced that they are planning to start, or they will start, there's a statement of intent here, a European Super League. Now, I'm going to read some of the details off my phone because simply I don't have them all in my head at this point. So the clubs that have decided to join this European Super League are Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Tottenham, all from the EPL. And then on top of that, AC Milan, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Inter Milan, Juventus, and Real Madrid. So there's no French clubs, so no PSG, for example, and no German clubs, no Bayern Munich, for example. And the whole idea is that they are going to start a brand new midweek competition, in essence replacing the Champions League. The idea is that they'll continue to play in their regular domestic leagues, so Man United, Man City, Tottenham, etc. will all still play in the English Premier League, but this will be the new midweek competition, as they've put it. They want to start as soon as possible, and they're also expecting a further 3 clubs to join in this particular league, taking the grand total of founding clubs to 15. There will then be a five additional spots every single season that teams would be able to qualify for, with the statement being, or the rumor being, that 2 of those clubs would be the 2 clubs with the highest coefficient in UEFA's standings that currently do not have a spot in that would automatically qualify them for European competition. Liverpool, for example, at this point in time, they are not going to qualify for Europe through the English Premier League, but they have a very high UEFA coefficient, which determines how well a team has done over the last number of years. They have that high coefficient, so they would be included in this European Super League were they not already a founding member. That's how that works. So you get 15 teams that are in every single season, 2 that come in as their UEFA coefficient, and then a remaining 3 that would be taken from teams that have qualified. I'm not sure what the criteria are, they haven't been laid out, that would then get to compete in this Super League. Those are the facts from a statement that was released yesterday by the initial 12 founding clubs of this European Super League. And essentially there has been widespread condemnation. I put 2 polls up on my social media, both of which have around 90% of people who are against this European Super League. And there are many people asking on these polls, on posts on the internet, why? Why are they against this Super League? Not because they are particularly for it, but because they don't understand why people would be against it. Because on the surface, if you look at it, you take all of those teams that I mentioned and you get to see those teams play as if it was in a Champions League. Why would you not want that? Everyone wants to see Man United play Real Madrid, Barcelona play Juventus, the biggest games from the biggest clubs. Well, the biggest problem, and my personal biggest problem, is that these 15 clubs, 12 plus the 3 that will be added, will automatically qualify for this particular Super League every single year as founding members. This is essentially franchise football. This is the way that a lot of American sports work. There's no relegation from this for these 15 teams, no matter what happens. So you take, again, Liverpool this season. You take Tottenham. Tottenham are the biggest joke in this list, closely followed by Arsenal, because Tottenham have finished in the top 4 5 times in the last 10 years. They only make it to the Champions League 50% of the time. They haven't won a Champions League. They haven't, like a friend of mine, Gaijin Bootblog, pointed out that Derby County since 1970 have played in more Champions League semi-finals and won more league titles than Tottenham Hotspur have. And yet Spurs seem to think that they belong with this elite group of 15 clubs. Arsenal are a joke of a club at the moment. Like they're halfway down the table. They're closer to the bottom 3 than they are to the top 2. So I'm getting off track and I'm ranting already. But essentially the problem is that it's elite clubs saying we have the money, we're big clubs, and we are going to protect the fact that we are going to continue to receive this money, because no matter how badly we perform, we're going to be able to continue to play in this Super League. And you know what? Forget the rest of you. Take Leicester, for example. There is a chance that under this system that they're putting forward for the European Super League, that in the year that Leicester won the Premier League, they would not have qualified for this Super League competition because there's so few spots available. However, Man United, Tottenham, Arsenal, Spurs would all still have qualified. So what, you're taking away the essence of football. What is the point if there's no competition? Like no matter what, you're a big club, you go in, you go and play. And I say big club very loosely because once again, Tottenham, like why are Tottenham included in this other than the fact that they've got money? Of the clubs that I've listed there, in the EPL, only 2 of them currently occupy Champions League spots for next season. That's 6 clubs, and only 2 are in the top 4 right now. And yet they think that they deserve to go into this European Super League every single season, no matter what, and get a huge payout. The amount that's been discussed previously for setting this up, and the amount is 4.6 billion. It was discussed with JP Morgan. It's a whole other thing, but essentially there's big money potentially in this, and that's what this is about. It's about all of these clubs holding on to cash and trying to make more money, which is kind of disgraceful at this time in the middle of a pandemic when so many clubs are struggling. Okay, the big clubs have lost money too. The big clubs are struggling as well. But the fact that they are essentially trying to put themselves in a little protected bubble and ignoring the fact that there are clubs going out of business, people losing their jobs, and they're willing to undermine the fabric of what is basically the footballing pyramid throughout Europe just to ensure that they continue to make money, is why this is just a despicable move on so many fronts. We do have to talk about UEFA and FIFA because they're obviously running the bigger competitions around the world, UEFA running the Champions League, and we have to admit that neither of those two branches, governing bodies of football, are particularly reliable. We don't really trust them, and that's completely fine. And the Champions League definitely needs reform. UEFA were originally set to release a brand new format for the Champions League today. That would be a new system for the Champions League using 36 teams. And the whole idea was that this would kind of stave off the idea of a Super League, but these clubs aren't interested because all they're interested in is their own interests, and they're not interested in football. And this comes from the owners. This is so much about just pure money and just not about what football is about. And I would like to think that as fans, there's been general outrage from fans, but I'd like to think as fans, we just don't watch this. If it was to go ahead, we would just choose not to watch it. Yes, it's a big game, but there's got to be more than just, oh, here's a big game. Imagine watching the same game 2, 3, 4 times a season. It's not a big game anymore. Like, it loses some of that luster. If you want to watch Man United, Real Madrid, when it comes around the Champions League, it's a big deal. Just putting them together almost every season, it's less interesting. It dilutes the product. You know, the more you get of it, the law of diminishing returns starts to apply. But back to UEFA and FIFA. As I say, the Champions League does need reform. And you know what? I wouldn't necessarily have a huge issue with a breakaway league or a breakaway system if that system was not purely based around the idea of retaining the status of the elite clubs of Europe. If this was a brand new proposal that allowed clubs to still qualify but reformatted what is the Champions League, even if that was away from UEFA, I would be completely fine with that. But there has to be competition. There has to be competition for places every single season. It shouldn't just be handed to clubs because they have either a bit of history or a bit of money, or like Tottenham, neither. And they're just there because apparently that's how this works. That idea of reforming the Champions League, that can be done, and that's what shows from these announcements that are supposed to come today from UEFA showing the changes in the Champions League. And this is done through the ECA, the European Clubs Association. And this is where all the clubs can come together and push for change together, not a group of clubs who think they're bigger than football, who think they're worth more money, going out and trying to set up on their own. The clubs have to work together here to have a viable competition. And competition is one of the most important factors here. There is no way, there is no facet of this particular arrangement or deal that I personally think is any good for football. It's all negative. The potential consequences of this against the clubs, so actions that their national football associations can take, and also ones that UEFA and FIFA have already threatened, kind of as follows. So UEFA and FIFA have basically said that any players who play in this breakaway Super League will not be eligible to play in international competition. So this would rule out players from playing in the World Cup, the European Championships, basically stop them playing for their national team, which should be a big thing for a lot of players. There's definitely some players, particularly players who maybe play for smaller countries that maybe aren't going to make it to World Cups and things like this, that would be lured to continue playing in this Super League because, simply the paycheck is likely to be higher. But I do believe there's a lot of players who play the game for the love of the game, and because they were kids and they dreamt of playing for their boyhood club. They dreamt of playing for Man United, Man City, Spurs, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus. They dreamt of playing for these clubs. And they also dreamt of going and playing at World Cups, emulating heroes of theirs, maybe Maradona's, Pele's, Baggio's, Romario's, like all of these players, Zidane's. They dreamt of emulating these players by playing at World Cups. And I think taking that away from a lot of players would be a big deal. And I do think that would mean a lot of players and managers as well would look to kind of jump ship. The bigger threat, I suppose, would come from local or national football associations who were able to say, if you participate in the Super League, we will not allow you to participate in our league. So, for example, Man United, Man City, Liverpool would not be allowed to play in the Premier League if they joined the Super League. And I think that would kill this dead in the water. And I think that is the right thing to do. But the question is, do the FA have the balls to actually do that? And based on the way that football has been progressing, I would argue that they don't, because the way that football has progressed has actually led us to this point where the power sits with the clubs who have the money, who are at the top of the tree. It doesn't sit within the FA, and there does need to be a redistribution of how football is run across Europe and probably the world. So I don't think that any of the national FAs would actually go ahead and do that, despite the fact that that is what basically needs to be done. Joel Glazer is the vice chairman, so one of the owners of Manchester United. He's the vice chairman of this Super League. Florentino Perez, the chairman of Real Madrid, is the chairman of this Super League. So this is directly from the owners of these clubs. This isn't players, this isn't managers, this isn't fans. Nobody's asked for this. This is the owners trying to pocket themselves together in order to ensure that they continue to make money and that they protect themselves in a time such as this where revenues are dropping with things like COVID. And these are already the richest clubs in the world. This is nothing more than just pure greed. I mentioned the ECA earlier, the Club Association, and also a lot of these board members such as Joel Glazer and Florentino Perez, they held positions on the ECA board or on the UEFA board. They've all resigned. All the clubs that have association that are in the ECA have all pulled out as a result of this announcement, which basically they have to, and they formed their own little mini faction. And the more you look into this and the more you stack things on top of each other, the more it's pure greed, the more this is damaging for football, and the more this is something we should absolutely not want. And there are some, I suppose they are to a degree, a knee-jerk reaction that if my club does this, I will no longer support my club. But is that the right reaction? Is that actually as far as we have to go as fans? Like, I'm a Man United fan, and usually I do a nice thing where I try and match my shirts to what I'm talking about. I didn't want to sit here in a Man United jersey today. I've sat in a Derby County jersey, a team from the Championship, because I didn't want to sit here and show support for any of these clubs. And do I want to support a club that is willing to do this to football? And okay, it's unfair on the history of the club, the managers, the players, but when the owners are able to make these decisions and then the governing bodies are not going to hold them to account, then what else are we supposed to do but choose to take our money elsewhere? Because that's what this is about. It's about money. And if we take our money elsewhere, then maybe they'll listen. There's also the fact that, like, is this truly a super league if teams like PSG, Bayern, Dortmund don't actually get involved? The other big teams, if they continue to refuse to be involved with something like this, is this really a super league, or is it just a break-off faction that, in all honesty, I hope gets left behind if it goes ahead? I genuinely do not believe this will go ahead. I think that the sanctions will come in place in some way or another that will prevent it from happening. Not least the players just won't want to play in this particular league. Although I do think the teams will use this unified front from these Big 12 teams to push for a better deal, or in their eyes, a better deal from UEFA, in order to try and get more money out of a competition like the Champions League. So if they look to reform the Champions League, these clubs will look to take more money out of that. But I think that the important thing here is that the power in the end rests with the money. And that's why this has happened. And as the consumers of the product, which is kind of what we've been reduced to at this point, we're not really fans anymore. We're consumers, and we're wallets, and we're checkbooks. That's how we're being seen by clubs. We're just being seen as money, as eyes on a product that makes them money from TV deals. Obviously, they want to sell this Super League as a TV deal as well and make even more money that way. So I think that the way to actually stop this, while I'm hoping and expecting UEFA, FIFA, the FA, the Liga, and I'm expecting them, not Liga, and that's the French one, La Liga, I'm expecting them all to put sanctions in place to stop this happening. The way that, if anything goes ahead, the way that we do stop it happening is to cut the funding. And the way we do that is to, as fans, not spend the money on these clubs. If this goes ahead, I will not be attending games at Old Trafford. I love going to Old Trafford. It's one of my favorite things to do. I have some fantastic memories. It's magical. I love going, and I love going with my brother, and it's just a fantastic experience. I will no longer go if this goes ahead. I own this season's Man United third shirt. I won't be buying a away shirt. I won't be buying any further Man United products. We have to draw a line, and we have to do it united together. And the FAs have to do this as well. The UEFA and FIFA, they all have to step up. And as I say, UEFA and FIFA, I have criticized on so many occasions for a variety of different things, and they absolutely deserve it, because they are an awful organization that seems to be corrupt to the core and themselves only interested in money. But in this instance, the clubs have taken it a step too far. There are ways and means to combat the status quo within UEFA. And as I say, I'm not against breaking out into something that is not run by UEFA, but it has to contain competition. Everybody has to be able to attain that goal. There has to be the club from the bottom league that works their way up through the table and somehow ends up in the Champions League, whether that's group stages, knockouts. That has to exist. The drama of football, the underdog taking the win, that magical fairy tale story, it all has to be present, and it has to be present for football to work, and it has to be present through competition, not through big clubs taking their money-filled ball and going home. I think I've ranted for long enough. I wanted to do this as a YouTube live, but unfortunately the system wasn't working. So I'm going to do it as a video. I'm going to put it up as a premiere. So if you are here early, please, you can ask me any comments, any questions in the chat down the side here. We'll talk about it. And yeah, I'll get this very quickly. It's going to be a simple edit. Do like the video, get subscribed to the channel, and let me know if you like this kind of stuff. I know it's away from Boots, but I just felt that it had to be said, and I had a lot of pent-up feelings about it, because it's a game that you love, that I love. It is the beautiful game, and this is ruining it. I will ruin it, and it needs to stop. As I say, any questions in the chat, but that's me for today. Have a good one. I'll see you soon.